Two suspects, other than their friends.
The two suspects, believed to be so dangerous, police have
give her time to get to. Oh, Maria. Well, good evening. Welcome, everyone. This is the School Building Committee meeting for the Lowell High School project. My name is Eileen Donahue. I'm the manager and the chairperson of this meeting, of this committee. And I guess before we start, I'll ask Alex from my office to call the roll.
Eileen Donahue.
Present.
William Samaras.
Here.
Edward Kennedy. Rodney Elliott. Ratty Mom. Connie Martin.
Here.
Connor Baldwin.
Present.
Marianne Bellata.
Here.
Marianne Bastide.
Here.
Christine Clancy.
Present.
James Cook.
Here.
Janine Durkin.
Here.
Jay Mason.
Here.
Ben Opara.
Here.
David Peasley. Maria Sheehy. Diane Trad. Billy Joe Turner.
Here.
Richard Underwood. Mike Vaughn. Jeff Wilson. Ralph Snow.
Thank you. Before we get started, I did want to introduce tonight our newest member of the School Building Committee, Ralph Snow, our new Commissioner of Department of Public Works. Ralph just started this week. He's off to a great start, and he's still with us, so thank you. Just by way of background, Ralph has a tremendous amount of experience here in the city. He was the commissioner of DPW for approximately 6 years previously, and has extensive background in construction and engineering background, so a great addition to the committee. So welcome, Ralph. We also have a couple of housekeeping items on the agenda. You should all have on your desks a copy of the agenda as well as the presentation, and we obviously have our consultants here tonight to make the presentation. But first, the first item on the agenda is a motion to accept the minutes from the December 6th meeting and place those on file and entertain a motion. So moved by Jim Cook, seconded by Jay Mason. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And so, without further ado, unless there's any questions or anything that the committee wants to bring up before we move into the presentation, let me just explain the purpose. Tonight we will be, after the presentation, entertaining a vote to approve the schematic design and moving this to the school, to the MSBA. Going back over our timeline again, we're going to be recommending to the City Council, who will take this matter up next week. Under our timeline, we are expected to submit the schematic design no later than February 20th, and then MSBA will examine and go over our schematic design, and then we will expect to be on their hearing list for April 10th. So just to give everybody the timeline and the time frame that we're working with. And I also want to recognize our city clerk, Michael Gary. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. I know you are too. And our clerk is here because tonight the vote that we're doing has to be certified by the city clerk, so for submission purposes. So without any further delay, I'll turn this over to Perkins Eastman in Skanska.
Thank you, Madam Manager. For those of you who are new to the committee, my name is Joseph Drown. I'm with Perkins Eastman, and I'm here with my colleague Robert Bell, and we have Marianne Williams and James Dowd from Skanska, who will be also presenting some items for us this evening. Just a quick overview of what we're focusing on is the process that we've been going through as a recap that includes the plan and the program and how those two are coordinated. We were going to touch base on the site plan this evening as well as building design. We also have for you the presentation of the project budget. So we've been working with the community for the last several months. We've been having meetings with the school building committee here and educational leadership teams and working groups and focus groups on specialty items within the school. We've met with Lowell Historic as well as National Parks, the Inspectional Services Department and the first responders, police and fire departments. We've met with planning and development, and we've also completed existing condition investigations at 75 Arcan. We've had meetings with the students, and we had a meeting that was focused specifically on security for the school. So you may remember we've started this process back in 2016, and this is the timeline of the process that we're going through. We have completed a preliminary design program and then submitted that to MSBA and had a cost estimate. We had a preferred schematic report that resulted in a cost estimate. We had a revised preferred schematic report, which is the downtown site, resulted in a cost estimate. And we're currently in schematic design, and we're very close to the end of that process. We have completed our cost estimate, and we'll be sharing that with you this evening. We also will be talking to you about CM at risk selection. We've started that process. That's the procurement delivery of the school, and Skanska will be speaking to that shortly. We then move into, there'll be a vote from MSBA April 10th, and then we'll be moving forward into, after the vote from City Council on the 24th, we move forward into what we call detailed design, which is design development and construction documents. There'll be several cost estimates during those phases. Design development, 60% and 90% of construction documents as well. Then we go out to bid, and then we have what's identified here as a 5-year construction process. But I think there are a couple things here that are important to see, in that keeping the budget as we go through this design process is very important to the community. We understand that. It's very important to us and Skanska as well. And we do that through cost estimating. We use cost estimating as a design tool, and at each phase of the project it will be estimated, and it will be compared against the budget. And if it's over budget, we'll come up with strategies with you as to how to bring it back on budget. And we'll do that 3 more times during this process. The other thing that I think that I'd like to just point out here is that during construction, this is a very large project, as everyone knows, but it's really comprised of a number of smaller projects. By the time the project is fully completed, you'll have the gymnasium, which will have been completed approximately 12 to 16 months after the starter construction, before the final project is completed. And then we also have a brand new freshman academy, which will have classrooms that the students will be able to take advantage of. So even though this project goes over a long period of time, I think it's important to understand that there are smaller completions of the project that the community will take advantage of and have before the completion. And now Skanska will talk a little bit more in detail about the SAM at risk procurement.
Good evening. So with the process, we've already received approval from the Inspector General's office to proceed with construction manager at risk. We anticipate later this month we'll be sending out an RFQ for qualifications of construction managers. There's a pool of about 6 or 7 construction managers that are large enough that they could bond this project. And maybe if there were more firms interested, you might see some joint ventures as well. So we feel as though there's a very strong pool and very strong interest in this project. We anticipate that by the time we go through this 2-phased process, one is qualifications, and once they're deemed qualified, we would send out a request for proposals, and there would be a technical component as well as a pricing component. And we would go through a series of evaluations, comparing apples to apples in terms of technical competence, as well as how folks compare relative to fees, general conditions, general requirements, and pre-construction costs. So we anticipate that by the beginning of June, we would have a construction manager on board ready to begin working with the team. And that was kind of the Reader's Digest version, because we've talked about this before. Okay.
Okay, I'll actually step us through the project and the design. And again, I know many of you have seen this a few times over. There are some new faces, so I'll be fairly direct, but we can certainly come back and answer questions on any portion of the presentation. So just for reference, you can see this is an image of at the intersection of Arcand and Father Morissette. We're looking at the existing school with the field house in the foreground, the current dentist office property off to the right-hand side. And this shows you the transformation of the campus. So what we're looking at in the foreground is the Freshman Academy, which is 5 stories, 4 stories of freshmen, and the lower level is science and technology labs. To the right of that, you're seeing a new field house that's purpose-built and designed to accommodate actual track and field events. And we have some new construction that connects that back to some of the 1980s building that will remain. And we still, on the other side of the canal, of course, have the restoration of the existing facilities. So there are a number of key documents we presented to this committee over time. One of them is the space summary, and I'm just here to report that after we've gone through the long process of identifying all the spaces needed for the future education, the MSBA has also reviewed it, and it is effectively has been reviewed and approved. We still have a special education submission to the DESE. There really has not been an issue. There's a very small amount of space that's considered ineligible, and that's on virtually every project across the Commonwealth. There's usually some ineligible space. It's a very, very small amount. It's some of the specialty programs that are not curriculum specific that the MSBA decided that they wouldn't contribute towards, but are certainly recognizing they should be part of this project. We also wanted to just highlight and remind ourselves of the educational program that was written by the district, and it really outlines what the current and future educational goals and objectives are for the school. And as the designer, we're charged with creating a school that can meet those needs. And I'll walk you through how the plan does this. But the primary things here were to first bring the freshman academy over and connect it to the existing school, one campus. To create a community zone and use of the school that also is a heart of the school. So we're trying to create an identity and a space that the students can clearly see as the center, the epicenter of the school. And there's a lot of richness that we'll build into that. We know that a very important component is to create collaborative clusters. So STEM and humanities clusters of classrooms are organized in the future school, and that's going to allow teachers to collaborate and work more effectively together. We also wanted to make sure that we structure the new school so that the house administrations that the students and the families depend on are positioned so that they're easily accessible, but they're also not only for the students but for families entering the school, and provide a secondary service as well of distributing administration throughout the school, and putting eyes on the street is the phrase we use to have an adult presence throughout the school and foster those connections. We also wanted to emphasize a good learning environment, and some of that just starts with how you treat daylight. We know there are a number of studies that daylight can improve test scores and learning. There are a number of things, actually, it's all the environmental factors that go into creating a proper educational environment. So I'll walk us through the floor plans. On the far right, you're looking at the basement level plan. It's intentionally faded out of the 1922 building. And what we have here, and we have some images, not renderings of this exact project, but of very similar circumstances. What we're talking about and what we want to impress upon you is that this is a total transformation. So what you understand now at the lower level of the 1922 building feels like a basement, looks like a basement, smells like a basement, is really going to be completely transformed. We have found in investigating the structure, we found new ways to bring daylight in, not only at clear story level, which is glass up high, but also skylights into spaces, and there are also light wells that we can revive. So we're talking about reclustering the arts and TV studio and a number of the performing arts as well as visual arts into desired adjacencies and creating suites of rooms and building flexibility, adaptability, and really vibrant and inspiring atmosphere. One level up, we're looking at the overall first floor plan. On the far right is the 1922 building again, and outlined in orange is the new construction. And you can see whenever we're building new construction, particularly classroom space, like the Freshman Academy, which is the bar that's located right along that long axis, we're positioning it so that the rooms face north and south. That's one of the primary things that you really want to do in a design, not only for energy efficiency, but for, again, proper daylight into educational spaces. We're also designing the school so that although we want to have controlled entries, we want to have multiple entries to get the students in the morning. So we have managed entries that bring students into the heart of the school. On both sides of the campus, we're setting it up for security at those entrances. So once the students arrive, should visitors or parents come, they'll have to go through the security check, a little bit more robust than what you have now in the school, and before people are admitted further into the school. School is also set up so that it has layers of lock-off capability, another feature for safety that's important. We're demonstrating here in this diagram, still on the first floor, the heart of the school. So we have a main lobby, and it's really, when you walk in, it's a chance to connect to the outdoor quad, the green space, which is just an amazing amenity that we're able to build into the new project. The Freshman Academy is connected right off the main lobby. You get a view and a connection to the gymnasium, health and fitness wing, the main cafeteria, as well as to the culinary restaurant, and to some of the support spaces that students and families access. So this is what we're talking about when we say the heart of the school. This is a diagram that shows, and we've got letters throughout the school that show where there are humanities and STEM clusters, as well as the admin houses. So the diagram on the left just shows you clusters of, for example, say 3 social studies and 3 ELA classes with some mixed in special education. That creates a humanities cluster. Likewise, 3 science labs plus 3 math classrooms creates a STEM cluster. So the pattern that we've created inside the new school, which is virtually taking down the majority of walls inside the shell of the building for existing, is to reposition and resize classrooms so that we can create this pattern. That repeats on the upper floors, including, of course, the freshmen are organized so that they're in clusters of classrooms on all 4 floors. And we have the new media center. We're afforded enough space to effectively create 2 versions of a media center. One is intended to be a restoration of what used to be the old ballroom in the 1890s building for more of a traditional version of a media center. And then on the 1980 side, it's actually a new construction. We're creating more of a technology-based media center. We're seeing a lot of activity with kind of maker and media and technology-rich programs that can also be part of a great resource for the school. A few of the other features that are in the design plan, you may recall, one of the issues that we're remedying is that even though we're reusing a good portion of the 1980s building, we are eliminating the windowless classrooms by providing substantial light wells into the center of the school. These serve a number of purposes. First and foremost, to bring daylight into the labs that are in the center of the building. But it also becomes an opportunity for the school to connect to maybe science and engineering or even art. So we're still exploring what these could be places where we can express the school's culture as well as provide a resource for the science programs. There's a limited portion of green roof on the new school, and this isn't just for looks, it's actually for purpose. So where we have a clean energy lab on the upper level of the new construction in the 1980s building, we also have a terrace where we can have some, again, yet to be flushed out, but we're reserving the space, and we've put in the budget the ability to have green roof gardens and, of course, at the very least, a sampling of renewable technologies, so a bit of wind, solar, and other things that can be part of the school's new program. We're also seeing that this is a way to create outdoor learning space as well, and it should be a great amenity. This is a look at the site plan. I don't think the site plan has really changed much from what we've presented early on. You can see we're featuring or showing where there's the new main entrance and a plaza that's designed to sort of help manage safety and security on the site and the volume of students and visitors that may come. The light wells are pointed out here in the diagram, as well as the quad, which is the new green space that will be used for a number of programs. The green roof you can see down kind of in the middle of the diagram there, but it's down at the lower end of the 1980s building. At the lower level of that building, we have the cafeteria, and there's the chance to have outdoor terrace and space for an extension of the dining. This is a diagram that zooms in on the main entry. So you're seeing a 3D view, kind of a bird's eye view, looking at the main entry, and you can see the plaza space that's created. We're building in what we would call natural defenses. So where we've got a number of kids, some may be waiting for sports or there may be arrival or pickup. We're using walls to create effectively seat walls to introduce a little bit of green space, but it also becomes a protection perimeter for the school. So there's actually a grade level change that you might not notice from the street level to the main entrance that's about 3 or 4 feet. So we're using that to great effect to create kind of a safe environment and a welcoming plaza. And surrounding that 3D image are some examples of plaza patterns or building in benches or creating features. We hope to utilize artifacts from the city, maybe even the use of old rail lines or a number of things that we can restore to build them into the design of the terrace and the paving around the site. This is another view, this time focusing on the quad. So this is a bird's eye perspective. You can see that the quad is enclosed, so it becomes a school territory, a school space. It can be opened up for public use, but otherwise allows students to come freely in and out or as programs warrant. So there'll be green space that can be used for sports activities, for band, for marching. There'll also be a little bit of a natural amphitheater built in there, and the idea is that this could be a great venue not only for the school, but for maybe public events, showing of movies or fairs, a number of things. The kitchen and the cafeteria is at this level and feeds into it, so there are a lot of opportunities that are going to be afforded to the entire community with this layout. You can see off to the right, there's some examples here of similar scenarios where there is green space surrounded by built-in benches and, of course, movie or other screens that can be used. So this is that overall aerial view. I'll click through a few other views. This is down low at the corner of Arcand and Father Morissette, so we're looking at the Freshman Academy. Again, the lower level is our tech labs. And as I was talking about, that grade level change from street to the main entrance is about 3 or 4 feet. That also allows us to have a nice bit of glass for these labs, to show them off, to let people passing by or in the street see that there's a lot of activity, there's learning going on. But at the same time, because of that 3 or 4 foot difference and the fact that windows don't start for another 2 feet above a floor, we're talking about maybe 6 feet of space from the sidewalk to the glass. So again, it's a natural protection, but still affords us a lot of wonderful views out and in. This is a look at the gate. And again, these are not final designs. We're just in the basically the stage where we're reserving the budget, and in the next phase we'll continue to develop design. But this shows the sort of the built structure that separates the street side from the quad, and also becomes a place where athletic buses may students may wait to get on their athletic buses and go off to some of the fields that are around the city. This is a view of the main entrance from down low. You can see off to the left is the 1980s building, but we're able to reinvent a little bit of what you see at the lower level of the 1980s building, and we're also opening up some of the stairwells. Right now there's no daylight into the stairwells, so it's considered something that certainly creates a little bit more accountability, as well as bringing, again, natural light into some of those dark spaces. So we've peeled away some of the brick on that existing stairwell to bring glass in, and of course that's something that's repeated in the new construction. This is a view looking from the canal at the back corner of the field house, but also just in the distance you can see the green roof and the cafeteria space that's below it. We've got, of course, rebuilt bridges over to the 1922 side of the canal. And the 1922 side is also going to get quite a kind of a refreshed look to it. So what we're doing is replacing the windows, and we're replacing them historically accurate to what we've seen in some of the old images that we've been able to find. We're also improving from that exterior wall on the inside. We're actually tearing away the inside of the wall to get insulation in there, but also rebuilding the walls within. So a completely transformed interior environment, but a restored exterior, more historically accurate. We're also able to rebuild the entries, like the auditorium entry, so it's not a series of multiple stairs. and a challenge for accessibility. It'll be completely accessible. As we work our way around the building, so too will we be restoring and making accessible entries on the Kirk Street side. So there's nothing to see here. It looks like a restored historic facade, but in that center entry, we're actually rebuilding the stairwell so it's at sidewalk level, so someone with a wheelchair or with a piano can come straight in that door, go up or down an elevator, and get to where they need to go. So without changing the exterior look, we're able to make it accessible. And this is just a video that will kind of take us around slowly to see, for those that maybe can understand better in a video, we're looking at obviously the 1922 building with that restoration, working our way back toward the older 1890s and the entry I was just speaking about. So the entry between the 1922 and the 1890s is the one that would become the new accessible entrance on that side. This is bringing us around, again, restoring at the upper level of the 1890s building. That's where we have the new media center that will be that restored two-story space. You can see the bridges here and the green roof and cafeteria, and we're working our way around the new field house. On this side of the field house, that new roadway that you see between the Masonic Temple and the field house is for service. And it also creates opportunities potentially for buses and other things that we're still exploring. You can see the quad in this view, as well as taking us around to the Freshman Academy. Generous sidewalks and plazas. Certainly a lot of focus on bike storage, and we're hoping to further emphasize and get students to walk and bike, as well as we know there's heavy public transit. And so this is a look at some of those front walls. Certainly a lot of places where we can, almost in collegiate style, name portions of the building, whether it's the arena or the main school or the freshman academy. And we're not going to show you much on the interior, but just coming in, security would be right there on the left, and then into a little bit of the heart of the school that really connects you to everything. So are there any questions on design portions?
Any questions? Jay Mason.
Hi, thanks. That's an excellent presentation. It looks like it's really come along quite well and has a fair amount of the things that we've all talked about over the past number of months. From a sustainability standpoint, I did want to point out, when you're in schematic design, it's my understanding it's kind of an aspirational place. It's kind of this is what we're hoping to do, this is what we think is in our budget, this is kind of where we'd like to be. And we're not getting too definite about that, but it is a time to make suggestions. And I didn't see any solar on the building, and I know we talked a little bit about that in the sustainability meeting, the subcommittee meeting. So I was hoping that we could maybe not necessarily fill the buildings with solar, but have an appreciation of that as a concept, as a placeholder, as something that we want to evidence in our aspirations for what we'd like to build. I was also thinking the same thing about the bike racks, although I did finally see them. There wasn't anything in the original in that cover drawing, so it wasn't clear that that's important. And I just hope that we can point out sustainable aspects of the design potential so that we don't lose track of them. We'll get into design development, and the things that we had aspired to will no longer be necessarily available. Thanks.
Yes, and if I can respond, one of the things that we're making sure that we do, even though it's not in the rendering, we're making sure that the new construction is solar ready, and so conversations are going to continue about what can be in the budget or how it gets in the budget, because there are a number of ways that solar panels can be purchased. We did want to say that the very important things to do at this level are good orientation of the building and a good envelope, and that's also where there's been a lot of focus. The bike racks, I only pointed them out toward the end, but there's an amazing amount of bike racks in covered and controlled storage for bikes too, which is really important for a number of...
Thank you. Mayor Samaras.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I mean, what you're talking about really is the dream, okay? But could you, you've talked about it, but the thing is, this school is also going to be able to be heavily used by the community in the sense of the way you've got the buildings separated off. And so in other words, you can have students in a certain area, but you can allow the community to make use of it. I'd like you to address that. And the one thing, when you're talking about renovation, I want to make sure people understand what you mean, because we're talking about the Lord building, the 22 building. You know, when you're talking about renovation, you're not talking about painting. You're talking about completely stripping it down, all new wiring, new piping. Can you explain those two a little more detail?
Yes. So it's what we refer to as a gut reno. So you may see the exterior shell, but we're popping out windows, and even the exterior wall is not going to remain exactly as it is. We're going to tear away the inside to put insulation and new finishes. And for example, in the 1980s building, the only thing that's going to be left inside are the columns and the structure, to which we're building back all new walls, all new floors, all new ceilings. Everything is effectively new construction inside of an existing shell. And that's virtually true of the 1922 building as well.
Could you actually address, I got a kick out of talking about the terrazzo floors and why they'll remain.
Yeah, so there's some things that we're afforded in wonderful in restoring and preserving portions of the building. So the 1922 building has terrazzo flooring, and for most of you that don't know what that is, it's nowadays it's a very expensive flooring. It lasts forever. It looks as good as the day it was put in. So we're making sure that although we're rebuilding all the walls, majority of the walls, excuse me, inside the 1922 building, we're holding the same line of corridor so that we can preserve that terrazzo flooring, and then we'll have new flooring other than that corridor terrazzo. But that's an important thing to keep, we think, for sure.
Thank you. And community use?
Yes. So back on the plans, one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we've provided is at the ground floor level, coming in from the main entrance of the school. We have a number of things. We have the security booth right there, but that lower level of the business tech wing includes, for example, right on the main lobby, the school store. So it's going to be one of the first things you see, and it'll be an opportunity to have merchandise on display. We'll also have the culinary restaurant that's within reach, as well as the cafeteria and the student support services, which is one that families use. So that main lobby area will be still controlled entry through security, but visitors, patrons will be able to use, including the bank and a number of other things that are in that area, without going any further into the school. So there'll be lines of doorways and lock-off or permissions that need to be had to get deeper into the school. It'll be very easy, effectively, for the school to control the use and make it open for community without compromising or opening up the entire school. We do know that the existing plans inherit the fact that the auditorium is in a separate location. That actually may be a good thing because of having multiple venues at the same time. So over on the auditorium side, we're doing a similar thing where we're taking the zone of the auditorium and making sure that there are bathrooms, elevators, stairwells, everything you need so that the auditorium can be opened up in the hallways that surround it, but not the entire building and other spaces. The gymnasium, or the health and fitness wing, is set up so that it can be opened up independently, and the rest of the school can be locked off. So for specific events, or maybe it's used for voting or something in the future, they can really be separated from school use and operate similarly, almost independently.
And just one more. The road, in other words, it's very difficult to access the high school now by, for service trucks. I mean, can you just go a little more into detail with that?
Yeah, so what we're doing now is creating enough maneuverability for service trucks along the back portion of the back portion of the field house. Really, there's a new access road, but down at the end of that road, there's turning and maneuverability so that service trucks, tractor trailers can get in and provide deliveries. There's the opportunity to connect it, and so that there may be a street through that would make it even easier use, but that will all be remedied with the new plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So I guess the next phase is the budget. Jay?
Just a quick follow-up. I wonder if those, I was looking at those light wells, and the scale of them, to me, looks fairly small. Have you done any sections through those to look at how much light you're actually going to get into the spaces?
We're starting to do studies now of the actual daylight, and a lot of it will be dependent on how we can refract light. But we were struck, oddly, we went into the existing school and measured out the size of them. They're quite large. They're larger than you would think, and I'd be happy to, if anybody wanted to, for reference, what is currently now the student support suite, which is kind of a big rectangular space with a fair amount of glass. It's actually 1.5 times the size of that. So if you go into the existing school and you look at what that is now, you'll get a real sense of just how generous these light wells are.
So with regard to the project cost, these are some summary facts for you. The total square footage of the building at the end of schematic design is 622,777. The square footage for the renovation space was 388,262, and that works out to be 300 and I can't read that. I have to refer to my notes. 358.55 per square foot. Our new construction was slightly smaller. It was 234,515 square feet, and the square foot cost for that is $485.29 per square foot. Site and building takedown, these are numbers that MSBA requires us to break out, so we're sharing these with you, is the $17,423,246. And the total estimated construction cost is $270,444,856, or $434.26. And the estimated project costs went down slightly. It is now $343,399,220. And that has to do with the amount we were carrying in the previous estimate for site acquisition, which has been removed from the project.
Question.
Mayor Samaras.
The cost that you're looking at is basically lower than the first estimations that went out. But the thing is, people will be concerned that, well, as construction goes along, we'll have to pay more money, or, the cost will increase. Can you tell us how this can be controlled?
Sure. We typically carry contingencies in our estimates, a number of contingencies. There's design and pricing contingencies, and that allows for things that aren't totally shown at this time, but we know we have to put that in. A lot of the description that for mechanical systems, as an example, is in narrative form. So as those start to become physically visible and cost estimators can take those off, the bottom line stays the same, but the contingency moves up into actual hard costs. So we have construction contingencies that we address during for unforeseen conditions during construction. We have escalation that we built into the project, understanding that the project will increase in costs, material costs and labor costs will increase over time, and that's carried through halfway through the construction project. We also have a contingency for the GMP. There's the CM's contingency will have a contingency built into it. So there, as well as an owner's contingency. So the owner has a contingency that they manage during the process. So we believe that the budget has been built that supports the project going forward, and will be able to account for unknowns as we move forward.
What's your record in meeting those goals? as companies?
We've
What is
al-
your record in meeting those goals?
100% of the time, we've met these goals. You know, there are always unforeseen conditions, but we try to make sure that there are sufficient estimates that are done, what the potentials could be. We've had a lot of site investigation so far, and the recommendations from those consultants have been taken into account and built into the.
No, thank you. That's important for our parents and taxpayers to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you. So with these cost estimates, basically what we're getting, the best way to look at it is we're getting a $343 million high school for about $130 million. Cost of the city.
That's correct, Senator. The share, the local share is 129,267,000.
And we're saving by keeping the shell of the 22 building, we're saving a lot of money, aren't we? When you look at the renovated cost per square foot compared to new construction, the 22 building will be new inside, but by saving that shell, we save a substantial amount of money by doing that, right?
That's correct. In fact, as Bob pointed out, all the systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, technology, are all brand new systems. But we save tremendous amount of money by being able to not have to build the floors, the walls.
Okay, thank you.
There questions? Okay. Oh, Councilor Elliott.
I noticed that the contingency is not included. Number one, why is that? And number two, what is that cost? What is your percentages you carry for contingency? Does not include construction contingency.
Yes. With regards to the contingencies, we have under the reimbursables for the designer, we've carried contingencies that if there's further exploration that needs to be made, we've carried an additional $200,000 under pre-construction for the construction manager to do destructive investigation. We've carried in the GMP number, the construction budget, we've carried 3%, which is $7.3 million. For the GMP contingency. We've carried $15.6 million for escalation to the midpoint of construction. We've carried almost $0.4 million for design and pricing contingency. We've carried below the line for the project 7%, which is $18.9 million. For the owner's construction contingency, and then under the owner's contingency, separate distinction, there is an additional $2,050,000.
And those are rolled into right now the existing total project cost?
That is rolled into the entire total project
with the
cost.
exception of the designer contingency?
No, all of it is within
it all is. Okay,
the total project cost. So what we did, and just to kind of step back a little bit, we had two independent cost estimates from PM&C and Skanska. We reconciled those estimates. Joe and I have spent a lot of good time together the last couple of weeks, and we have done things like talking to move managers and putting together a budget for moving. And not just move management, but the cost of the movers. And so what we've done here is we've really vetted everything possible that could be vetted to say these are our costs, and then projecting saying, okay, well, our experience with other projects, very large projects, $200-300 million projects, that we've been able to say, well, our experience, hindsight, looking back on historic costs, this is what we thought it was going to cost, and this is what it ended up costing. We had put together a matrix across 4 large projects where we were able to determine to say, no, we're going to increase this line a little more, or yes, this line item here is sufficient. And we did that because literally the Mass School Building Authority will not allow us to go back a second time. So this is what we're submitting is a schematic design, and it's a total project budget. schedule, and scope. And we heard the city and the district loud and clear about the concerns about the money. We all share those concerns. I've never had a project I've worked on, and I've worked on a lot of projects where we've ever been over budget or missed the schedule. And that's frankly our reputation. This is how we find work, because if we don't make it work the way we said we would, we won't be, we won't be winning the next project, basically.
Right. My concern is, given the market conditions in the construction industry, particularly in the Northeast and maybe just nationally, you feel comfortable that these estimates per square foot will come in as you project?
Yes.
Both for the renovation and new construction?
Yes, and we're looking at it as a total project. You may find a little fluctuation, could be 1 to 3, 1 to 5%, either way.
Sure.
But in the end, the total, we're very comfortable with the 270 million, 0.4 million for construction. We're comfortable with the contingencies and the fees that have been built into this. I know, or I believe, it is in the best interest of the city to spend every penny, since you have the state participating with 80% of reimbursable costs. And this is a unique opportunity to be receiving this kind of money to the, to the tune of, almost $216 million from the state. So I think, this is a project that the Mass School Building Authority is behind. This is a very public project. I mean, everybody's watching and looking at what's happening in Lowell, because it is a significant project. And believe me, trust me, I couldn't sleep at night if we didn't really take a deep dive here and vet this in a very significant and serious manner.
No, that's good. I appreciate that. I'm just concerned if you look at so many other public and private construction projects, because of demand, does that mean, I certainly see in my field escalated bid submissions, so I'm just concerned and that these numbers are solid. And other schools, are you doing other schools now, or of similar nature, and the costs are roughly similar?
Yeah. If we look at what we've done here, I think this is a very efficient building. You can see that in the grossing factor, that it's 1.47 for new construction, when the MSBA allows up to 1.5% for new construction. We also see that we're looking at what's happening in the market. We looked at an analysis where we went back 10 years, looked at 10 years of escalation in construction, and then we projected forward. What is that trend? And we carried those dollars and percentages, and it wasn't just Skanska's opinion or Perkins Eastman's opinion. We also had an independent cost estimator that shared the same opinion. So there's a lot of current costing information out there, and I don't see it in this slide presentation, but if you look at where school projects are right now, we are below the average, and it's not because, whoops, we forgot something. It's because we really utilized to the max what was available within the existing structures that could be a positive for the project. I mean, we know that money is always a big concern and issue in every community, and some more than others.
Right, good. Thank you. Will we be getting somewhat of a summary of these costs? I mean, I know there's incredible detail, but it would be helpful to have maybe just general category summaries, or is that?
Yeah, we can have that prepared. I think the other point is, once this is submitted to the MSBA, then they will do their cost estimating. So these figures could change depending, maybe you want to address that. And then we will have their final figures, which will be the subject of the vote in April.
Change for the lower, change on the lower end.
So what you'll see in the submission to the Mass School Building Authority will be two estimates that are about 85 to 100 pages each from the two companies, and then the reconciliation. So that is part of the submission. So you'll see the detail in that. And then what happens with the Mass School Building Authority, they will review the submission. there'll be, the next step after the submission will be what they call a project scope and budget conference. And they will basically take a document, which is called the 3011, their document, their spreadsheet, and then they will take what we populated and do it all over again in their own spreadsheet to make sure we didn't change any formulas or if there was any errors or whatever. And then there will be some conversation about eligible, ineligible costs. We have filled this out in such a way that we believe that we have submitted the appropriate information, and we need them to confirm their review and if they agree with our assessment about what the appropriate numbers are. But I think, you know, in looking at this, I really know that this was a seriously vetted project, and that will come through in the assessment from the
thank you.
MSBA.
Mr. Cook?
If I could,
double back and repeat what Senator Kenny said, because there's been talk in the council chambers about this being a $350 million project. Even though the number comes in a little less than 343, the cost to the city is only 100, not only, but it's 129 million, not 343. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the debate of what is the cost to the taxpayers of our city. And the other point I want to make is that I think I've heard this before. So this has to go before the school building committee, the school building authority in April.
It's on the, we expect it to be on their April 10th agenda for approval.
So, and it's my understanding that is Lowell's shot at getting the 80% funding. And if for some reason that didn't happen, we could sit back we get back in the line for another quite a long time. Okay? You know, so we need this to go before with full council approval by April 10th.
So the MSBA would vote on it first, and then once they approve the project, then it comes to the council for the council to approve the funding. School Committeeman Andy Dakota. Oh, you have a microphone. Good.
She wants me to go to the podium.
Apparently, the city is spending about $1.2 million on a new roof on the 1922 building. Is that correct?
It's 2.2.
2.9.
And that isn't just the roof, it's masonry work that has to be done as well.
So is
which
that
about
going to be
half of it.
retained in the project, hopefully? It seems like a lot of money for it to be taken
Yeah.
down. Or is that going to be still utilized in the project?
That is, it's a separate project from this project, separate designer. The project was bid separate from this project because of an emergency situation with the building leaking. So it's not part of this.
It's not reflected in this budget. But the as far as whether the roof remains, that we will see, you know, and certainly all of the masonry work that has to be done on the roof will remain. That's more than half the cost that has to be done. Okay. But in order to replace that roof, the masonry work has to be done. And the city, quite frankly, had no choice because of the condition of the roof. It wasn't going to last 6 years without, it's been patched and repaired beyond belief. And so the roof is being done.
Okay. I just wanted to just double check on that.
Yeah.
The other question I had pertained to, have the chorus rooms, are there dance studios included in this project where it's part of the basement? Is that going to be included in the basement?
Yeah, there are actually 2 new dance studios that are part of the program, and they have the flexibility to open up and connect to each other to make even one larger room. They have dressing rooms associated with, changing rooms associated with them, so all purpose-built.
Are the current band rooms and chorus rooms remaining where they are?
They are utilizing the existing height of the space that they're in now, but they're rebuilt. So, for example, we heard from the band folks that they don't want built-in risers, built-in, stepped tiers. but they need the height, so we're providing handicapped accessible ramps into the band rooms and rebuilding the band rooms so they'll have that same height. So they're in the same location, but completely rebuilt.
Is something similar to that going to be happening in the chorus room? Do you know?
Exactly.
They're doing, okay, good. I think those are great things. Near to my heart, sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Elliott.
I just want to follow up on the reimbursement. It's not 80%, unfortunately. And is there any way for us to, I know it's all driven by educational goals and programs, but we're closer to 63% on reimbursement. Is that correct? 63.4.
That is correct.
And why is that?
That is correct, because under 963 CMR, they have categorically identified in the MSBA grant program what are considered eligible costs and what are considered ineligible costs. And so any ineligible spaces, they take that net square footage, they have you gross it up by the grossing factor, and then they deduct the dollar amount per square foot. And that is why the reimbursement is 80%, but it's of eligible costs.
Right. Can you describe some of those areas that are not eligible? Because to me,
yes. So for
anything in that
example,
high school should be eligible. But
so for example, the bank and the credit union is considered ineligible. The retail store is considered ineligible. Katie's Closet, Lowell Community Health. And so there was 2,800 square feet for that. It gets grossed up. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right number. It gets grossed up to 4,674, and then it gets multiplied times the average construction value per square foot. So they multiply that times $434.26. So that's how you end up with that number. But overall, an eligible scope for this project is around a little more than $2 million. It is not a huge number. The other place is that any cost that is above $333 per square foot is an ineligible cost, because that it's not that the state says, oh, well, you should be able to build a school for $333. They're saying we're willing to participate up to $333, and whatever the costs are, the rest is yours. And so that number in itself is $50.7 million.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Manager. I think it's worth pointing out that the way this project began at the very beginning was as a result of Lowell High School being accredited, and when it was accredited the last time, it was cited for problems with the facility. And I think everybody's aware, probably everybody in the entire region is aware that that recently the facility has building systems within the existing facility have failed even more. So we only have one high school. We have to have a high school that is accredited. If we don't have a high school that's accredited, you can imagine what that would do to residential property values. They would fail. Nobody would want to buy a house in Lowell or in any community that has a high school that is not accredited. So I think what we should look at this as a tremendous opportunity. And the idea that we're getting $215 million from the Commonwealth to do this is a great thing, and it's an opportunity that the city cannot afford to pass on. And so I think that hopefully we'll move forward this evening, but I think everybody has to keep that in mind, that this is something that we have to do. And I think as Mr. Cook was what he was alluding to a few minutes ago was that if we were to balk now, at some point the MSBA is going to lose patience with Lowell, because we've been at this for quite a while now. And if we were to go back and have to start all over again, it would be years down the road, and And I don't know where we would be then in terms of having a high school that would be accredited, or we would have to pick up the dime ourselves in order to bring it up to snuff. And we'd be paying not 20% or not 35%, we'd be paying 100% of those costs. So this is a tremendous opportunity and something that we certainly cannot pass on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let me just say a couple of words. I think what's been said here tonight, obviously this is a state-of-the-art school, a school of the future in an urban campus with many unique aspects, and I think will be one of the most outstanding high schools, not just in the state, but beyond. The project is quite large, as our consultants have told us. There's been quite a bit of interest from construction managers in this. It's a project that's on the map, and so we look forward to entering that process to see who will come on board to partner with us in this construction. But I do want to mention, from my position as the city manager since April, when on day one I faced the gas leaks at the field house and all of the attendant urgency and emergency that came with that, and the cost that we've had to incur just to get heat in the field house. And we continue to face those challenges throughout the school. We are doing the best we can. We are getting heat in the school, but there's continued repairs. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. From where I sit, it's unfortunate that this process wasn't done 10 years ago or more. All of our systems are beyond their useful life, and they will not last another 20 years. In my view, particularly sitting in the manager's office, speaking every day with Superintendent Durkin, though I like her very much, when I see the call, I shudder. But we have no choice, and the reimbursement is one that is real, and it's a very, very thoughtful process that we've gone through here. So that being said, I would entertain a motion that we approve the submission of the schematic design as it has been presented here tonight to the MSBA. Moved by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by the mayor. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call?
Eileen Donahue,
Yes.
William Samaras,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Rodney Elliott, Connie Martin, Connor Baldwin,
Yes.
Marianne Bellata,
Yes.
Marianne Bastide,
Yes.
Christine Clancy, James Cook, Janine Durkin,
Yes.
Jay Mason,
Yes.
Ben Opara, Maria Sheehy,
Yes.
Diane Trad, Billy Joe Turner,
Yes.
Mike Vaughn, Jeff Wilson, Ralph Snow. 19-4.
Thank you. So going to the next steps, do we have anything to speak about tonight on the March agenda?
Once we have the submission go in on February 20th, the next steps will be, one, to put together requests for qualifications for the construction manager, and then the other thing that will be also happening over the next 3 to 4 weeks after the submission is that there will be a budget scope conference with the Mass School Building Authority, where we will know what their recommendation is to the Mass School Building Authority Board regarding the state's participation. So we'll have a final number there, and we will understand exactly what the costs and their share will be.
Thank you. And then lastly, let me just add that though the MSBA does require certain amounts of time that we can affect things like the vote after they have approved the project, it is our plan to move this as expeditiously as possible. Every week, every month that we lose in not beginning this process is not just cost that we incur, but it is the inconvenience of being in a school that is woefully beyond where it should be. So the plan would be, once the MSBA, it gets sent to them and they vote on it in April, the city council is expected to vote very soon thereafter. And with that said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Thank you all. Thank you very much. And I do want to thank you for the hard work you've put into this. It's a great design that you've all come up with. So thank you.